I got engaged this past weekend, and if I told my younger self that just now, he would call me the biggest idiot in the world because I never used to believe in marriage. I thought it was dumb. I thought it was a way for a woman to get everything that she wants while the guy kinda gets screwed over if it doesn't work out. So I spent most of my late teens and 20s thinking that I would never get married. I'd still have relationships and whatnot, but I knew it would never progress past being boyfriend and girlfriend. Until I had a serious talk with myself about what my actual problem with marriage was. The truth is, I think a lot of my fears of getting married were conditioned by three things. It was conditioned by my home life, it was conditioned by my past relationships, and as much as I hate to admit it, a lot of my past beliefs about marriage were conditioned by social media. So those are the three things I'm going to be talking about in this video, and hopefully if you're ready to hear it, then I can show you how we've been pretty much programmed into thinking that marriage and women are evil. And speaking of evil, let's talk about the first topic, which is social media. As a social media manager myself, I spend an unhealthy amount of time on those apps, mainly Instagram. My screen time is insane, but it gives me special insight into why most of these social media accounts post the content that they post. And that is to show you the most toxic, rage-baiting content to exist on the internet for engagement, because that is what is going to get the most emotion out of you, and emotion is what makes you interact and share the post. This means that 9 times out of 10, if you are seeing anything about relationships as a guy on social media, it's going to be negative content that makes you distrust women. It's going to be about toxic women and cheating and a guy losing everything in a divorce, red pill content about why you should stay single and just hustle, why cheating is okay if you're a guy, yada yada yada. You guys have seen all these posts. And even though most of us know that this isn't the reality of most real relationships, it leaves an impression on us because we know that there's a possibility that our relationship could fail because we're constantly seeing examples of it every single day on social media. So although we want to believe that not getting married is our choice and that we're just working on ourselves, we're actually being conditioned to be scared of the consequences of trusting a woman. Social media feeds us constant content that tells us that if we are to get into a serious relationship, we are going to get hurt. Because I honestly believe that whole thing about guys loving harder, I think there's some truth to that, because we get absolutely destroyed in breakups if we really love the girl. So it's really easy for us to see all this content and confirm our beliefs that we shouldn't get married, because that way we can avoid the worst case scenario of falling for a woman who ends up destroying us. And social media makes avoiding this easy because it makes us feel like we have unlimited options. You open up the app and you instantly get access to millions of other women. And it's true, you do kind of have unlimited options. But this way of thinking I personally grew out of because I realized that you can't constantly live in the what if mindset forever. If you find someone truly good for you that elevates you and that you see a future with, what good does it do to throw that away and explore another option where you don't know where it could lead? To me, there is way too much benefit to finding a partner who truly elevates you, from the smallest things like doing chores around the house to the bigger things like buying a house, career moves, emotional support, connections, community. Social media doesn't show us that, and if it does, it's hardly being shown to us guys. Instead, social media pushes us to be obsessed with ourselves and envious of what other people have. It pushes us to work harder on things alone that would be much easier if we had someone by our side. But this is where the best advice I have ever received comes into play, which is, whichever way society is pushing you, it's probably a good idea to go the other way. And right now, society and social media is pushing us towards individualism over community. Another term for this is divide and conquer, right? I'll spare you guys my conspiracy theories in this video, but it's important to ask yourself, who benefits from society being more individualistic over community driven? Because it isn't you. We like to celebrate the idea of being a lone wolf, but we all still acknowledge that a pack is stronger. I'm just saying, it's something to think about if you are considering settling down. Alright, there's a lot more I could say about social media and how it corrupts us, but I don't want to go on a rant. So let's talk about the second way I was conditioned into believing marriage was not for me, which is coming from a divorced household. My parents divorced pretty early on in my life, and that kind of sets the tone for future relationships that you don't really need a partner because you think you could do everything by yourself, which is a very jaded and selfish way of thinking. You think my parents were divorced and I turned out just fine, but by thinking like this and taking this mindset into relationships, you end up treating your partner like they are expendable, which is a recipe for disaster. But if you were to take a step back and really analyze the situation you were in growing up with the divorced household, I mean, I can clearly see that it was not easy for my mom to raise me and my brothers without my dad. And my dad never got as much time with us as he would have wanted, and that is a very unhappy situation all around. And no matter what either of them say, divorce was never the goal. A happy marriage and a strong family unit was plan A for a reason. It's just easier to do things with your teammate, with your partner. And if any of your parents are divorced, maybe you've even heard them complain about this. They might say things like how they just wish they could have a little more help. So I think we should believe them instead of thinking that we could just work things out on our own and be lone wolves, because we should want to form that strong family unit, because the other side of it can get pretty ugly and lonely. Nobody wants that. They just deal with it because they have no other choice. So if you come from an unmarried home or a home where your parents weren't happy together, you should think about how that actually impacts how you see relationships. Because after I did, I quickly made the realization that these negative thoughts I have about getting married most likely stemmed from that. Alright, so the third way I was conditioned into thinking I didn't want to get married was through my past relationships. If I'm being 100% honest with you guys, early relationships shouldn't even count. I'm talking about the ones from high school and your early 20s. Your frontal lobe isn't even fully formed by the time you turn 25. So you quite literally aren't even a fully functioning adult yet. And you still have a lot to learn. But the problem comes from when you take those experiences from your early relationships and you start to form your opinion on marriage from those. Dating someone at 19 years old and thinking that they are a good example of what a future wife is going to be is actually insane. Most people are still learning how to take care of themselves at that age, let alone helping to mold their significant other into the person that they want to be, and caring about their needs and their goals, which is what a good partner is supposed to do. And the reality is that it takes time to get to that point where you can give that part of yourself to someone else. My mistake was thinking that all women were like the girls I dated at that young age, which is A, unfair to other women, and B, honestly pretty unfair to my exes too, because I'm sure they grew into being much more well-balanced adults than when they dated me at 19 years old. Because when you're young, so much of your time is still not even your own. Like, you're still trying to figure things out, and you have these stupid fights about things that are going to be irrelevant in 5 years. It's really hard to think long-term and think about building a solid foundation with someone when you're worried about failing your physics tests or trying to find a job. You have no clue where your life is going to go at that point. And we like to think that our partner is supposed to weather that storm with us, but it's not fair to ask your partner to put exceptional effort into you when they haven't even gotten themselves settled yet. That's how you end up in these toxic, codependent relationships, where people will go out of their way to make these extreme gestures and expect you to do the same, even if those decisions aren't what's best for your future. But yeah, that was my problem, just carrying those experiences of those past relationships into my new relationships. We call that baggage. It changed when I met someone that was more emotionally available and stable enough to give support without hurting themselves in the process. Now with this person, I'm able to see eye to eye with them on problems that really matter, and this whole marriage thing doesn't seem so far-fetched or scary because we're on the same page. And that doesn't happen if I never gave them their fair shake and brought baggage into the relationship. You know what I mean? So yeah, bottom line, I used to think marriage was a trap. I was convinced that committing to one person meant giving up my freedom and that it opened me up to potential pain. But what I realized was that being with the right person actually gives you more freedom, because life is a lot harder alone than it is with someone who shares your struggles with you and wants the best for you. My younger self might think I'm an idiot for getting engaged, but I'm a lot smarter than that guy now.